Welcome back to the Content Swap Podcast. You are joined by Parker and
Aaliyah.
And this is our 50th episode. Wow. Yeah. 50 of these things.
Crazy.
We've been doing this for over a year now, and we haven't been posting every single week. You know, it's specific sometimes because we take vacations and whatnot. So, you know, the 1 year anniversary was actually about a month ago. Mm-hmm. And we're not even at 52 yet, but 50 of these.
Why did you specifically point out 52?
52 weeks. Yeah. You don't know how many weeks there are in a year?
I just did the biggest eye roll for those who are listening.
Yeah. So yeah, we're at episode 50. That seems kind of crazy to think that there are 50 episodes of us talking about different things. That is 100 pieces of content.
Geez, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, that's
Lots
crazy.
of stuff we've experienced together, and we still have such huge lists.
I know.
Of things we haven't even gotten to.
I know. We'll be able to keep this entertaining for at least 2 more years.
Oh my gosh.
Until we run out of stuff.
We'll never run out of stuff because there's always new things that we watch separately or that we engage with separately. So we'll just, because like we continue to add to our list.
That's true.
And there's so many things from like our childhoods and things that we still have not tapped into.
That's true. I mean, every week I'm finding new things that I have not written down that I'm like, oh, that would be a really good podcast episode.
Yeah.
Like the base of my list that I wrote when we first started this podcast was me looking at things and being like, okay, she would like that, or she would be okay with watching that. Now I'm like, I don't care if you're okay with watching, you know, I got to go back. I started out thinking like, oh, this would be good for a podcast and, you know, she would be willing to watch this. Oh. Like, I'm not going to, you know, it wouldn't be torture for me to subject her to this. Like, that's how my list started.
Oh my gosh, no.
And then, well, now it's turned into like, yeah, I'm going to give you whatever I want if I think it's going to be fun for a podcast.
And I would never like, the only thing I'm hesitant about usually is like games, just because there's so much. They take so much time.
Yeah, it's time.
Yeah. But I'm never going to be like, oh, don't assign me this movie. I'm not watching that, you know?
Well, yeah, no, I know. But I mean, when we started, I wanted it to be entertaining for you. Yeah. You know? I didn't want to just be giving you things that you hated. Even though I started out giving you a lot of games.
that's kind of my favorite things that you give.
Are the things that you hate?
Because it's just like, because then I think more about it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I hate this? Like, what about it did I not like? And then I feel like that always makes for a really good conversation.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I don't even like the thing that I assigned. You know, that happens too.
Same.
I didn't know I didn't like it until we watched it.
Yeah.
But I've already seen it and I thought I liked it.
Well, sometimes I assign you things that it's not necessarily that I like it, but it's like, oh, I watched it because I knew it was such a popular movie or something like that. And it's like, I want you to see it too.
Yeah.
So like, let's talk about it type of thing.
So our plan for this episode is we have 2 assignments. We're not doing like a big crazy 50th celebration. We're actually going to do that for the next episode.
Yeah.
So we will actually not be doing any assignments at the end of this episode. Correct. So, I mean, with all that being said, you know, last week we had Flannery and Chelsea on the podcast. Mm-hmm. We talked about Fantastic Mr. Fox and AJ Fickery. Hopefully, you know, more collaborations like that can come in the next 50 episodes or next 500 episodes, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any updates just from the past week that you want to talk about before we jump in?
I feel like last episode before we had Flannery and Chelsea, I had started that book, The Girls of Summer.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't sure if I liked it. And I was kind of talking about how I wasn't really feeling the main character. I think after I finished the book, I was not deep enough into it to give like to have a full understanding of the character. I think now having finished it, I had to remind myself that like people cope with trauma in very different ways. And so I had to, as I went through the book, I was more lenient with the character and like trying to understand her actions in present day because it was dual time point.
So this is a book with dual time points, and the main character had a way of coping with their trauma that you didn't necessarily relate to.
So in the present day, it starts with present day, and then we jump back into like back and forth between present day where she's in her 30s and then in her past when she was 18.
What's the name of this book?
The Girls of Summer. It comes out in June.
Okay.
And when we start off in the present day, she like kind of sucks.
Okay.
And just like the way she treats her husband and like all this stuff, and she's so fixated on the past. And I was just like, girl, what are you doing? And then as I understood more what happened when she was a teen, and like it made more sense as to why she was doing the things she was doing in the present, and I was like, I should have been a little more lenient with her, because I knew it was going to be a book about like something happened to her.
Right.
I didn't know what exactly, and it was starting to give like Jeffrey Epstein vibes, which is like really hard to read.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean? What do I mean by that? You know what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, hopefully. I'm not going to describe it here because it's just like super sad.
It's well, I guess it's kind of like, it's hard for me to apply that to this character has trauma that you don't agree with, and then
no,
Jeffrey
not
Epstein
trauma that I don't agree
Sorry,
with.
my bad. That's not how I meant to say that. Trauma. They cope with their trauma in a way that you can't relate to, but then you bring up Jeffrey Epstein, and
I'm trying not to like
get
spoil the
confused by
book.
that. Okay.
I'm trying not to spoil the book, but if you know what went on with Jeffrey Epstein and the things that he did, very similar things happened to this character and other characters.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yes.
Okay.
And so when we're in present day, she's having these behaviors, and before I knew what had happened, I was like, why are you doing this?
I
like,
see.
And then
Okay.
as I learned more, I was like, oh, okay.
All right. We don't need to go much deeper into that. I was just confused by the description.
Yeah, I know. I was having a hard time describing it because I didn't want to spoil it. It hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
Which, like, I feel like I did kind of just spoil it because, like, but yeah. I mean, there's so much more to it. But, so I wanted to give an update on how I felt about that, because I felt I was being unfair to that character.
Gotcha.
When I brought up the book.
Okay.
But other than, what?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Are you almost done with this book, or you did finish
I finished that book.
Oh, okay.
I'm, like, almost done with another book. So I'm currently reading The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen, which I'm really enjoying. I'm a part of a rom-com book club, so that is our book club book. And yeah, I really like it. It's a very cute book, so highly recommend that one. I won't get into that, but what I'm really excited about is I made the decision that I wanted to have my own gaming setup.
Oh yeah, this has been a lot of fun, actually. Continue.
You've just been watching me obsess.
Yeah, it's great. I love watching it.
Yeah, I feel like when I get into a hobby, I'm all in, like 100%. And some stick around, some fizzle out. But yeah, I'm very interested in my own gaming setup, and I love cozy games. So I moved my desk in our office, and I like have this whole plan of like how I wanted to set up, and I started playing Melatonin, which is really fun. I'm really
That's a video game?
Yeah, that's a video game. I love it. And
can you describe it a little bit?
It's a rhythm game. But basically it's like you're this character who keeps like the chapters are like every night.
Yeah.
And so each night he falls asleep, and you're in his like dreams, and there's like different things he's dreaming about, and they're like mini games basically. So you go into the dream, and then there's some sort of thing, like so for example, he was dreaming about food. So you have this pizza box that's throwing pizzas at you, and you're trying to catch it in your mouth, and you have to do that based on the rhythm.
Yeah. But
depending on like whatever it's about, you're doing the like rhythm tapping for like different games. Like they all have different, there's like a shopping one where you swipe your card to the rhythm. There's like a social media one where you like jump on the like apps and things. And
so each of these has its own like kind of specific input to each level.
Yeah, and like based on whatever the game is, things are differently. So it's like for the shopping one, it's like, oh, whenever like these items will drop in a certain rhythm. Mm-hmm. Watch how it drops, and then you repeat that rhythm.
Okay.
Or like the gym one, it's like, oh, this guy's gonna do curls, repeat the same rhythm that he did his curls in, and like it'll switch things up, it'll go faster, it'll go slower. And so yeah, it's really, and I'm terrible at rhythm games, which is so weird because I feel like I have decent rhythm when I'm like dancing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like having these like visual cues and trying to match the rhythm to the visual cues, I struggle a little bit. Like with like the drums on Rock Band, I'm terrible at them.
I mean, rhythm games are really tricky to get right because it requires like no video or audio latency whatsoever to get it to be, the ideal perfect experience.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully they had calibration settings for you to help get that right, but I mean, rhythm games aren't for everyone. For sure. But I love them. I mean, I still really find them enjoyable, even though I suck at them, and it takes me a while to get used to it.
But
well, this one was supposed to be kind of on the harder side, but then you were able to turn on a setting in the accessibility settings to give yourself a visual cue.
Yeah, because I think what made it hard at first is I didn't understand how the game worked. I didn't realize that you had these visual cues within the game themselves that you follow for the rhythm. I thought I had to memorize the beats in the practice, because you do a practice round every time, and I thought I had to memorize the beats. So when I was playing, I was like, I don't remember what the beat was. Like, I can't remember at what, like, because it helps me to do counts. So I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, that sort of thing. And I was like, I can't remember what count it was on. And then I started then I switched my settings so that I had a visual cue. So it had like the bubble that would pop up, and then as soon as it got to the center, you like click the button. And as I was doing that, I was like, oh wait, like the game itself is like the visual cue, and I didn't realize that. But I've been keeping the bubble just until I get used to the game, and then I'll eventually go back and try and do it without it.
Yeah, I was watching you struggle with that pizza box, and I was like, well, the pizza box is doing a specific behavior, and that's the cue.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that.
I see. Yeah, you were like, I'm just guessing. And
because I was like, I don't remember
I wanted
the
to
beat.
take the controller from you and do it myself.
And I was like yelling at you because you get so excited when I'm playing a game that you haven't played, and you're like, I want to try. I'm like, I literally just started this.
I'm not like that.
You are like that.
No, I was like, could I try?
You go, can I try? And then I'm like, well, hold on, because I'm like in the middle of that, and you're like, well, can I try? And I'm like,
okay, I don't persist that hard.
You do, babe.
I do. I wait, and then I ask again. I do ask again. You're not wrong about that, but I don't ask. You're making me sound much more naggy than I actually am.
It's not nagging. I understand it's just your excitement, and you want to like do it too. But I'm like, okay, I just started this. I want to like have some time with it. I don't play that many games, so like when I am playing one, it's like if I don't stick with this, I probably will forget about it and I won't come back to it. So then I'm like, I need you to like let me just do this, and then later I can let you play it.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I left you alone.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
After I had to be like, please go away.
It wasn't that much. All right. Okay, anyway.
I still love you.
Okay. Get back to me on that.
But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. That's what's going on.
Okay.
Really exciting.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Gosh. Well, last week, or two weeks ago, not this past week, but the week prior to the past week, I went to Charlottesville Design Week, and I had a really great time. I met a lot of really awesome local designers, watched some really interesting talks, attended some workshops, participated in a design marathon for a local nonprofit. Just had an incredibly rewarding experience and loved it. Got feedback on our podcast thumbnails and logo, actually. So people may have noticed that the style of those has changed in the past week. Currently still iterating on that. So there might be some subtle tweaks here and there, but
they look really good.
I guess
I mean, comparative to what we had, I think they're definitely an improvement.
I'm a tough critic on my own work. And when it comes to, if I'm not particularly proud of it, then I'll kind of just be like, I'll act like I put no effort into it, even if that's not true. So,
why?
Well, just I got some perfectionist tendencies, but that primarily comes out in the work that I actually get paid to do. And when I'm not getting paid, I try to act like I'm not a perfectionist. I'm working through it.
Yeah.
But so I mean, we're still kind of designing those thumbnails and trying to get some feedback, as much feedback as possible. I think the main design issue I'm having right now is we've got this kind of stenciled black cutout of our heads in the foreground, and trying to make sure that has enough contrast with the background.
Yeah.
I mean, background itself is a color, but we want to have like characters from the things.
Yeah. And
so making sure that we contrast enough from that. That's kind of the trick right now. But we'll figure it out. We don't have to dive into ideas right now.
Yeah.
But that's just something exciting that's going on. I've kind of taken a break from the reviews in the meantime. I am going to post the reviews again starting next week. I've decided.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm gonna write one tomorrow, but I'm gonna get it ready for next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll just be back to being consistent. So yeah,
Fun.
And I'm still playing Resident Evil 4 remake and Zelda Twilight Princess. Might not play this Star Wars game when it comes out because I don't think there's going to be enough time for that in time for the new Zelda game. Right now, I'm just trying to finish the 2 games that I have in time for Zelda.
Nice.
I'm very excited.
And you just got a new Switch.
I did just pre-order. I pre-ordered the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's OLED Switch because it looked really pretty.
Yeah.
And I don't have an OLED Switch, and the screen is like bigger and crisper, and when you're playing it in handheld mode. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted it. But also, it was like you doing your whole cozy gamer girl thing was an excuse for me to give you my current Switch so that you could play it in your little cozy setup.
Yeah, because I only have a Switch Lite.
Right.
So it's helpful.
Yeah.
To have that.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to be cozy gamer girl, I'm not about to throw all kinds of money at systems when like we have a bunch at home anyway.
So this was an excuse for me to get a nicer Switch.
You were like, you can have my Switch.
Yeah.
I was like, sure.
As soon as the idea came up, I was like, yeah, I can justify the $374 purchase.
Yeah, which is not that bad. Comparative to like, I think a PS5. But I mean, the PS5 is like a way bigger system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. And I'm going to design you a game setup yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to get a little spruced up as well.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I moved the bookshelf and you were like, your setup's cooler. And I was like, you're the one who like, when you have meetings, you'll be the one to see it.
Yeah, everybody will be able to see it in the background of my meetings. Yeah. But my side of the room just looks so blank.
Yeah. Which is kind of exciting because then you can really customize
make it whatever
it, you know?
Yeah.
I have like such a small little window.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Okay. Well,
let's dive in.
Yeah, shall we?
Yeah.
Is there anything? Oh, we're going to go see the Super Mario Brothers movie tonight. Finally. That's why I'm wearing a Mario shirt for you audio listeners. Mm-hmm. Very excited. See it at the Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
Very fun. All right. Now, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Take things away.
Righty. So I was assigned Miami Connection, which came out in 1987. And this movie was phenomenal. But let me give you a little synopsis before I dive into my own thoughts. So I'm really summarizing this. We can talk about specific parts that we found funny. We will. But as a broad, very, very, very broad generic overview, this is a movie that's about a group of ninjas against this like rock band group called Dragon Sound. And basically, these ninjas are up to some like shady dealings in the drug business, particularly cocaine, in Miami. And one of the members' sisters is a part of this like thriving rock band group. And this rock band group is like, their messaging is very positive in their songs. Like they're about friendship. They're about like defeating crime, like in particular, like they're against the ninjas.
Yep.
And so it's also important to note that a group of people, I take that back. Anyways, basically the ninjas were kind of like pushing the drugs by, like through this this club that Dragon Sound is now the performers for. So with Dragon Sound being the performers, it kind of puts a damper on their operations. They can't push the drugs per se.
Yeah, there was an old house band at this club that I guess was pushing the drugs, but then Dragon Sound took their gig.
Job,
So now the ninjas can't push their drugs through that club anymore.
Exactly.
Amazing already.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the gist of it. And so throughout the movie, you have these run-ins between the ninjas and Dragon Sound. It's important to note that Dragon Sound, the members are highly skilled at Taekwondo. And so every time they have like a run-in, pretty much Dragon Sound is successful, and they manage to beat up the ninjas. Yeah, beat up the ninjas. Yeah. And so then by the end of the movie, there's like this real big battle between all the ninjas and Dragon Sound. And by the end of the movie, Dragon Sound literally wipes out all the ninjas. And I mean like death. Murder everybody.
They literally murder them. Yeah.
Murder everybody.
Wow. Okay. I feel like we just said so much stuff in a very nonchalant way.
Yes. I mean, that's the summary of the movie. That's the overview. We can dive into the actual scenes now.
And that, well, okay.
But
like,
first,
the end of the movie, Dragon Sound murders all of the ninjas. The end.
I told you I was gonna do a summary, and then we could get into specifics.
Okay.
But before we get into the specifics, just like my quick overall thoughts. I absolutely loved every single second of this movie. It was so fun. It was so fun. Like, we were like crying, laughing on the couch. It's a weird movie because it's like visually, like the cinematography is not that bad, but the acting is so terrible and the script is so bad that you're like, what I'm seeing is not aligning with like what I'm hearing. Yeah. And it's like real weird, but like makes it an even more enjoyable experience because you're just like, what is going on? What are they saying? They're saying nothing. They're saying a bunch of nonsense.
There are so many scenes that kind of are just sprinkled throughout the movie that serve no point to the plot. Like there's a scene where they're all... Okay, wait. I need to process this real quick. There is a scene in the middle of the movie where 3 of the members of Dragon Sound do a taekwondo demonstration, like on a field on a college campus.
Yeah.
And it's just them practicing taekwondo for like 10 minutes.
It's so long.
And then afterwards they're all sitting having a meal, just the 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they have this weird conversation about because they're all orphans, which we haven't mentioned yet.
I know, we need to set that up because that's the best part of the whole movie.
Because they're all orphans and they are all black belts in taekwondo, they want to go to each other's like home countries of origin to teach taekwondo in that country. Yeah. So we've got like they're like, oh yeah, we can go to Korea where Mark's from and teach taekwondo there. You're Irish American. We'll go to Ireland when we'll teach taekwondo. He's like, my parents are from Israel, so we'll go to Israel and teach taekwondo. Yeah. It's like,
and they're like, woo, yeah. And then like that's the end of the scene.
Yeah. They're like, wow, like we should get a meal while we're thinking about saving the world, huh? And it's like, what?
No, you are truly correct. There's so many just like random things, and like a lot of the scenes. It's as if there's no script. Like it feels like everyone's improvising and doing it very terribly because there's a lot of scenes where like people are like, there's 2 characters who's supposed to be in an argument and they're just like yelling these things at each other and they're repeating themselves a lot of time. Or like I remember there was oh my gosh, what was the scene? I don't know. One of the Dragon Sound members was talking to like another member and he just kept saying the same thing over and over. Oh, I think it was in the scene with Jim where Jim is upset about this letter that he received, and we'll get into that in a minute. But one of the members, you keep hearing him, and it's like because everyone's talking over each other, you might not notice it, but I kept like tuning into him because he kept being like, what are you all doing? You're gonna wake up the neighbors. And he said it like 5 times. And I was like, okay, he clearly does not know what else to say. Yeah. And so he's just repeating it. And like, because everyone's talking, you could miss it. But like, it stood out to me.
Yeah. This movie has a feel, like, it feels like they wrote it scene to scene. You know? Like they wrote the scene and then they filmed the scene and then they said, what should the next scene be? And just wrote it on the spot and then filmed it, you know?
What a wild movie.
So let's get into Jim,
my favorite character.
One of the heart and soul, I would say, of the Dragon Sound band.
This man was putting in more work than everybody in the whole freaking movie. He was acting his butt off. Yeah, and it was great.
So. Dragon Sound, they're all orphans.
Yes.
So explain who Jim's dynamic going through this movie.
Yeah, so Jim is notably the only black character in like the whole freaking movie. But there is this scene where Jim, Dragon Sound is at their shared home.
Yeah.
And who was it? John has this letter that's for Jim, but he's like taunting him and like holding it away from him and not giving it to him. And Jim's like, give me the letter. And so then he finally gets the letter and just like breaks down. And they're like, what's wrong, Jim? What's wrong? And so then he goes on this whole monologue about how his mom is Korean, his father's black. I think like his father like walked out on them or like disappeared one day, and so he's been trying to look for his father, and he doesn't know where his dad is, and so he's just kind of like telling us that story. And then Mark goes, you have a dad? And then like there's like a narration that's like, we are all orphans.
It's not a narration. No, Mark just goes, oh wait, actually no,
it is a narration.
No, I wrote it down. He says, I didn't know you had a father. I thought we are all orphans.
Oh,
that's
okay.
what he says.
I thought it was like a narration.
Yeah, that's
That makes
word
more
for
sense.
word what he says.
So yeah, so they find out this man has a family.
That is, I mean, and that's when they drop the fact that they are all orphans.
Yeah,
like
and
they
it's
have not
so out of the blue.
They did not allude to them being orphans. We just know that they're a rock band. Like their music slaps pretty hard.
Yes, and like also, I just want to point out, like these are like 30, like late 30s probably year-old men pretending to be like 19-year-old college students.
Yeah, so most of them actually are in their late 20s. But the guy that plays Mark, YK Kim,
Yeah.
he I think he like claimed he was 31, but he was actually 41.
Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
But they
all look so much older than like what the characters they're
Yeah, they're
playing.
supposed to be playing college students.
Yeah. But yeah, so and then Jim ends up being like the shining star. Once we get this backstory, Jim ends up being like the shining star of the movie, in my opinion. And at some point he gets another letter, and it's another picture because he in the first letter was a picture
Of his father.
And then he gets another letter with another picture, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I found my dad!
Yeah, it's like, my father!
Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And so everyone's happy for Jim. They're like, he found his father. We got to take him to go get a new suit so he can meet his dad.
Oh yeah, they all decide to like pitch in all the money that they have. They're like, hey, I got $50, $60.
Literally.
Great.
So they get him a plane ticket.
They buy him a suit.
Yeah, they buy him a suit, and on their way to taking him to the airport is when they have that big final battle with the ninjas.
Yeah, because the ninjas, they've been messing around with the ninjas operation.
Yeah.
Which, like, they weren't even intentionally doing. It's like they were just getting attacked.
For
And
no reason.
And then they're like, their lead vocalist, Tom, who is the guy with a mullet and a mustache, gets kidnapped at one point.
Oh, yeah. I don't even remember how they did they save him?
Yeah, they went and saved him. And in that operation to save him, they ended up killing Jane, their female vocalist, her brother Jeff, who is part of the like biker crew.
Yeah.
By
the way, the ninjas, they have like a biker crew.
Yeah, there are ninjas and then there's a biker crew, and they're like two different groups, but also the same group.
Yeah.
That part is really confusing.
It is.
But Jeff, who is Jane, the lead vocalist, who is also John's girlfriend.
Which, like, she really has no point in this movie.
She kind of disappears at one point.
Yeah.
But Jane's brother Jeff is one of the two main bad guys.
Yeah.
And Jeff's crew kidnaps Tom, the lead vocalist with the mustache. And so they go to save him, and they end up killing Jeff in the process.
Yeah, correct. To get back to Jim.
Yes.
And why he's so important. So, like I said, on their way to the airport is when they run into the ninjas, and it's this big battle.
Yeah, I think the ninjas are getting revenge for having killed Jeff.
Yes. And so battle starts. And while all this like action is happening, Jim gets sliced up. Like there's no way this man should survive, like, on his, like, entire front with, like, a whole sword.
Like, his tie got cut in half.
Yes, like, completely, this man is open.
That part was, like, pretty intense.
Sorry. I just choked. Honestly, whoever did the makeup and stuff, they made it very, like, I mean, it's very terrible
Sometimes
makeup.
it's terrible. Sometimes it's...
Yeah.
Hey.
But they do, like, very gory, like there's a person who, like, gets their head chopped off, and it's, you see, like, a whole shot of, like, the body with its head chopped off and, like, blood squirting everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, like, intense. They put in a lot of effort with, like, the makeup. But anyway, Jim gets sliced, and so you're like, no, because he hasn't met his father.
Yeah.
And you're really sad about it because, like, by the end of the movie, the only character you truly love is Jim.
Yeah.
You truly care about. And so you're like, no. And he's just, like, down. And, like, because he's down, the two members, which is John and Mark, who are, like, the most advanced taekwondo.
Yeah, they're by and large, like, they're the one, during all of the fight scenes, they're doing most of the fighting.
Yeah.
The whole band is supposed to have black belts.
Yeah.
But it's really, like, just those two actually have black belts.
Yeah, for sure. But they lose it.
Oh, yeah.
And
they're like, Jim, no!
Yeah, and they go off on these ninjas.
They, like, take some swords from the ninjas, and then they just go hacking and slashing, like, literally a murderous rampage. Yeah. The subtitles for John at one point said, like, it said in parentheses, like, savagely.
And he's covered in blood.
He is covered in blood. He is shirtless.
And, like, they filmed it in, like, these
swamp?
trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're in Miami. Like, they made it look like this is the Amazon jungle. Which, like,
Florida.
Yeah. But yeah, they lose it and they just go off on everybody. They murder everybody. And then they go back to Jim. Somehow Jim is still alive.
Yeah.
They put him in the car. They're like, hang on, Jim, don't see the light. I think John says that about, like, 5 times as he's driving. They get into the hospital, he'll be okay, and his father's at the hospital. So he finally got to meet his father.
Yes.
And his father goes to Mark and is like, you know, I hate that I had left him, like, when he was a child. And thank you for, like, taking care of my boy. I'm gonna be a better dad. And then, like, that's the movie. So really, this is Jim's movie.
Wow, okay. Well, also, during the climactic battle, there is a lead ninja.
Yeah.
Yashido is his name.
Oh, yeah.
And so Mark ends up having a, like, one-on-one duel with Yashido and, like, kills him in the process.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. There's a lot going on in this movie.
There is.
And there's a lot to miss.
Oh, yeah. 100%. But yeah, I'm like, one thing to mention, the soundtrack, the music in this movie goes so hard. It slaps. I absolutely love it. We've been singing it literally nonstop since last night. I think we watched the music video like 3 times last night. Like, we were dancing to it. It's just so fun and like so catchy. And yeah.
It's primarily these 2 songs. One of them is called Friends. And it's like friends for eternity, loyalty, honesty. Yeah, it's great. And then the other one's called Against the Ninja. It's got more of like a rock vibe to it.
Yeah.
So the music in this, all of the music that was that the Dragon Sound band did was actually made by the guy who plays Tom, who is the guy with the mullet and the mustache who gets kidnapped at one point.
Oh, wow.
Like, in the scenes where they're playing at the club, he's, like, visibly, he's the one that's singing.
Yeah.
He does the guitar solo. He wrote all of the music.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that gets at this other thing that's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
Which is that every main character in this movie, like, is in this movie because the people that play them are particularly, like, good at something.
Oh.
You know?
Yeah.
That wasn't in the notes. It's just an observation that I had.
Yeah.
Because It's like Mark, John, and Jack. All of them have these super basic names, by the way.
And a lot of their names start with J.
Yeah.
So you're like, who?
There's Mark, John, Jack, Tom, Jim, Jane. I said John already.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right. I said yeah. Wait, okay. Mark, John, Jack, Tom, Jim, Jane. That's Dragon Sound. And then there's Jeff and Yoshido. Those are like all the names that you need to remember. But they're all so similar.
Yeah.
So Taekwondo, Mark, John, and Jack are all really good at Taekwondo, like in real life.
Yeah.
And then Tom is good at like the actual music. He made the soundtrack. Jim is just good at acting, you know?
Yeah, he was the best actor in the whole movie.
And then Jane, I guess she could sing as well. And she was like, you know, the female vocalist.
Yeah.
Right. My descriptions for all of the characters, I copied down how they were all described on the Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Because it's like all the descriptions are like Mark, Korean rhythm guitarist of Dragon Sound. John, Irish American bass guitarist of Dragon Sound. Jack, Israeli American drummer of Dragon Sound. Because the movie made such a point of highlighting that in like one scene, you know? Tom, Italian American lead guitarist / vocalist of Dragon Sound. Jim, Korean / African American keyboardist of Dragon Sound. And then Jane, guest vocalist of Dragon Sound. Like,
I'm dead. That's so freaking funny. Wow. I mean, they're not wrong.
I mean,
That's
they're
what
not.
they said.
That the movie made such a point in making sure you knew that. You know?
That's hilarious.
That is amazing. There's also a scene in the middle of the movie where like they go to this guy's restaurant to eat a lot, and at one point some bikers eat there and they don't want to pay him, and he's like, hey, you have to pay me. And it's this whole scene where it's like, oh no, they're gonna beat up the guy that owns this restaurant. Dragon Sound needs to come and show up and like save him, because he's one guy, he can't take on all these people. But then, nope, like the owner of the restaurant just beats them all up. And then Dragon Sound shows up at the end of that fight, and they just walk in like, wow, dude, you just like kind of kicked everybody's butt. Like, wow, how cool is that? It's just like a lot of weird stuff like that.
I mean, he
trickled in throughout the movie.
Yeah, didn't he like impart some like words of wisdom or something to them?
Yeah.
I like don't even remember what he said, but yeah, there's so many just random things that like you forget about because it's like, what was it for?
Yeah. This movie's it's weird because, like you pointed out, there is some gore, and the gory parts are really gory, but at the same time, it's like this rock band singing about like friendship.
Yeah,
it's really wholesome.
Yeah, I think that's what made the gore very jarring.
Yeah,
because I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that.
Like, everything about it is uplifting, but then suddenly it's like, oh no, Jim's gonna die, and everybody sees red and just starts cutting people up.
Yeah, and it's like not always gory. Like it's not like that's a consistent theme when they fight. It's just like every once in a while, like, oh my gosh, his arm just got sliced off, and it's like, like gushing blood.
Right.
And you're like, what?
And it's like sometimes the bad guys aren't even like that threatening sounding. They'll say things like, oh, they're dead meat. Yeah. Which is like the most child-friendly way of expressing murderous intent.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure. Yeah. What also got me was like anytime there was like a group of people and they're like, you know, shouting or whatever, it's like none of them are saying real words. Like it's like they're all like, and it's like, are you saying something or are you just making sounds?
This movie has an eclectic cast of extras.
Yes. Yeah, there's like a particular blonde dude with like long hair who's he's always at the gym, I think.
He's at a gym.
Yeah, I think he's like a ninja, I think.
He's either a biker or a ninja, but the bikers might also be the ninjas.
Yeah, it's not clear.
But
I kept like trying real hard to tune into what he was saying because I was like, I don't think he's using real words.
I don't think he was. No.
Yeah, which makes it even funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, are there other things in this movie that we need to point out?
I don't think so.
In terms of the story.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there really isn't much of a story aside from just like these ninjas keep coming after the band.
Yeah.
And they just have to defend themselves.
So I would say, like, if you were listening to this and you're like, what is this movie? Just go watch the 2012 theatrical trailer on YouTube and tell me that it's not something that you want to watch, because that trailer is a fantastic cut of just all of the best things about this movie.
Yeah.
And it, like, okay, I have it written down right here, like, a violent ninja motorcycle gang steals cocaine from drug dealers in Miami, and they're defeated by a rock band of orphans called Dragon Sound, who are all black belts in Taekwondo and exclusively sing songs about ninjas and friendship. And they have a whole scene dedicated to talking about wanting to teach Taekwondo in all of their countries of origin. You can't fit more stuff in there than there already is, you know? There's so much going on in that one description.
Yeah.
Like...
It's so silly and it's so amazing, and I'm so glad that I witnessed it.
It's hard to believe that it exists.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that it does.
Yeah, same.
Halfway, or I want to say at some point while we were watching the movie, one of us said that there should be like a Miami Connection stunt show.
Oh yeah, I said that.
That would be so much fun to watch. You could do the music. You could have like the lights.
Universal
the
do
costumes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Universal should like pick it up and
that
do
would
it.
That would be a blast.
I would have so much fun.
Yes. Like this the whole, just all of the combination of elements, like it feels like it's all of the cultural indulgences of the 80s packed into one thing. Like when you think of like cheesy 80s kung fu movie, like this is that. It feels, I don't know if this movie is influential or if this movie is just like a perfect product of like what people were into at the time.
I don't know. Does it have like a cult following? Like, is it like, okay.
I can get into all of that.
Yeah.
But it does have a cult following. I also found out that, oh my gosh, I don't think I wrote down his name. It's like Angelo Valetti, I think was his name, the guy that plays Tom that did all the music for this. Mm-hmm. I found when I looked him up, it said that he was known for Miami Connection and Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, which is it's like an expansion of the Far Cry 3 game, where it's like this huge like 80s parody game that you're playing. Like there's lots of neon and grids and just kind of like cheesy humor. It like perfectly like this. So it's like, oh, okay, when Ubisoft made Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, they recruited the guy that did the music for Miami Connection to do music for that. Like that's perfect. Yeah, you know,
I love that.
So should I get into some facts about this movie?
Yeah.
All right.
Were you not already?
I mean, that was just an observation. I didn't even have that one written down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So making of, so YK Kim, he plays Mark in this movie. So he is was at the time a well-known Taekwondo instructor in the greater Orlando, Florida area, and he owned a chain of Taekwondo studios. He did a Korean talk show called Meet at 11 p.m. Like he was a guest on that talk show promoting a book about Taekwondo, and this film director, Richard Park, who's based in Korea, saw him and was impressed by him and then decided that he wanted to make a movie with him. So YK Kim, not knowing a lot about movie making, got really excited about the opportunity. So he really wanted to make a movie that showcased Taekwondo and just what Taekwondo had to offer as a martial art form. And so he borrowed money from friends, he took out loans, he spent all of his savings, and he mortgaged his Taekwondo school just to finance this movie, which was about $1 million.
Why was it on him to finance that movie? What about the guy who approached him?
I don't know, because they didn't have like a distribution company going into this. It was just like a director approached him, said, let's make this movie. And then
what did the director pitch in?
Nothing, I guess.
Absolutely not.
So YK Kim,
oh my gosh,
like he was the producer basically on this movie. He put so much money together to get this movie made. And apparently he himself was so popular in the Orlando area that the city let him film wherever they wanted to without needing any kind of special permit.
Oh, that's sweet.
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
Oh,
when they
gosh.
made the movie, every film distribution studio he went to rejected it and encouraged him to throw it out. Yeah. And then
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. But
No.
like,
so
I'm just like so scared that this is gonna end so horribly for him.
Just wait. Yeah, well, one of the pieces of feedback he got was that the original ending of the movie was a total downer because in the original ending, Jim dies and they never kill Yoshido, the lead ninja. So Richard Park, the guy who had directed the movie, had already gone back to Korea. So YK Kim, to make a new ending of the movie, read books on directing, and then he had the guy that played Jack, the Israeli-American drummer, he had the guy that played Jack read books on screenwriting, and they reshot the end of the movie by adding a final fight between Mark and Yoshido, and then adding a scene where Jim lives and gets to meet his father. And the guy that plays his father is like about the same age, if not younger, than the guy that plays Jim. He's just
I
got
literally
like
said
gray
that.
hair.
I was like, that is a teenager with
Yeah.
like a little beard attached to his face.
Yeah.
And the way he was talking, he was like, my son.
Yeah.
like,
Also, the guy that played Yoshido was unavailable to film the scene where Mark and Yoshido have that fight. So in the final fight, Yoshido is actually played by the actor who played Jeff. And Jeff's, he's dead, right? So in the final fight, you don't see Yoshido's face.
Yeah.
And Yoshido and Jeff kind of have like this similar, like, not bowl cut, but kind of like a similar hairstyle.
Yeah.
So you don't notice. But yeah, it's like a completely different guy.
Oh, it's so funny.
So, and that was how they made the final cut of the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, still nobody wanted to distribute it except for a small distribution company ended up buying it from them for $100,000, and it was released to 8 theaters in the greater Orlando area and some other parts of Florida, and apparently also in Germany, which is kind of random. And YK Kim said that, he was so excited, he had no doubt that the movie was going to pack every single theater and that it would be a blockbuster, but then the film was poorly reviewed, and it only ran in theaters for about 3 weeks. And he almost went bankrupt in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that was all in 1987, 1988.
Yeah.
So flash forward in time, a programmer at Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas,
Oh my gosh.
named Zach Carlson, found a copy of the movie being auctioned on eBay in 2009, and he ended up winning that auction for, it was inconsistent. It was either $35 or $50. But he ended up screening the movie at the Austin Alamo Drafthouse, and people loved it. So he handed the film over to the creative director of Drafthouse Films, Evan Husney, and Evan Husney called YK Kim asking for permission to re-release the movie. But the fact that the film had failed so hard 20 years prior was a really difficult experience for YK Kim because nobody liked the movie, and he was really proud of it, and he nearly went bankrupt. So he thought, when they called him, he thought they were playing a joke on him. Yeah. So he eventually came to understand that they genuinely appreciated the movie that he had made. So he let up. They negotiated for a long time, for like months, and eventually, they agreed to re-release the film, and it's since become a cult classic midnight movie ever since. And YK Kim now embraces the movie, like 25 years later.
Wow.
Or I guess almost like 35 years later now.
Is he still getting like royalties for?
I think so. Okay. So like the copy of the movie that we watched was on Blu-ray, which was distributed by Alamo Drafthouse. I
didn't know they like did that kind of stuff.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. So they had all these special features. There's like a commentary, there's an audio commentary.
Yeah.
with YK Kim on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
There's like a whole like who is YK Kim? There's a whole making of featurette. So like, yeah, it's really nice to see like this man was kind of like it was a soft spot for him, and then for it to find its audience 25 years later, and we watched it, we're like, yeah, this movie's not great, but that's what's so
it's
great.
Fantastic.
It is so good.
It's so good. I
like
love it.
Every decision that was made was the perfect decision to make.
Yeah.
Like just every single thing about it, you're just like, gosh.
Yeah.
It just gets better and better.
Yeah. That was like the most fun I've had watching a movie in a minute.
Right.
In a minute.
Like it's so easy to just turn your brain off and just like you're laughing, but it's also, you know, like you find yourself caring about Jim.
Oh, I cared so much about Jim.
Yeah.
I was like, if anyone breaks Jim's little heart, I swear to God.
Yeah. And then when they like sliced him.
Yeah.
And the characters like freaked out, and they freak out so hard that they go and murder all of the ninjas.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right there. So also of note, the film's original negatives were almost completely destroyed by Hurricane Charlie in 2004.
Oh my gosh.
But Drafthouse Films, they were able to reconstruct it as best as they could, which is why some of the shots look a bit more like beaten up than others. Like the quality of the film just suddenly goes down in certain places.
Yeah.
And that's why that happened.
Got you.
So other fun facts. Most of the people in the cast are YK Kim's Taekwondo students. Nice. Including some of the main cast, which again is like why they're in the movie in the first place.
Yeah.
Angelo Gennati, there we go, got it.
Yeah.
Who plays Tom, wrote and performed all the music. I said that earlier.
I love that the community came together to like help this man live out his dream.
Right?
Like that is awesome. The fact that like Orlando's like, yeah, whatever you want to do it. And like all his students are like, yeah, we'll be in this movie.
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's a scene where there's a scene where Yoshido goes to the biker hangout and like hangs out with all these bikers, who like when you watch it, you're like, those are real bikers.
Yeah.
So yeah, to no surprise, those bikers were indeed real bikers.
Yeah.
And they were paid in beer.
And
like 100 of them showed up to the movie's premiere.
Yeah.
Tom and Jane's actors were dating at the time, but Jane and John are the characters that are in a relationship, and they have a few kissing scenes.
Yeah.
Which are like pretty aggressive kissing scenes.
There's a whole scene just dedicated to them kissing in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
On chairs.
I forgot
and
about
it's
that.
like, why?
It is super weird. Yeah.
And it captures them at multiple angles for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. there are weird scenes like that where people are looking is not where they're supposed to be looking.
There's so many scenes where it's like the ninjas come across the like the band and everyone's looking in different directions.
The band is looking all confused, like what?
Why are all these people here?
Huh?
And it's like no member is looking at the same spot.
Right.
And also
it's just cutting to gang members and then cutting to the band being confused. It goes
it lasts for so long.
It goes on about like 5 times longer than it needs to.
And it's like no one's doing. They're just staring at each other.
It's
staring each other down for a solid 10 minutes, and you're like, when is someone gonna move? When is someone gonna say something?
It's so great. So, anyways, as I was saying, Tom's actor and Jane's actor were actually dating at the time. So whenever John's actor needed to kiss the actress that played Jane for the scene, the crew would tell Tom's actor to go buy beer, so that
did he know they were gonna kiss? Or
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So like to just take his mind off, like, oh, go buy beer, so that he won't be on set to watch that happen.
Pressed about it.
I guess
they're actors.
I mean, are they though? You know,
I mean,
they're Taekwondo students.
But like, if you're making a movie, if you were gonna be in a movie, even if it's a movie made by somebody in the community.
Yeah.
And like, you're like, I have to kiss this person. I'd be like, okay, you're in the movie. That's the script.
I feel like, yeah, there was like 3 of them were Taekwondo students, and then Tom and Jane were like musicians that they hired to make the music, and they put them in the movie.
Yeah.
And then Jim, they like had that story and they needed somebody to play him, because I don't think Jim, the guy that plays Jim, is like good at Taekwondo. He has a couple of like small little fight scenes, but they're like very simple. Like you can almost watch it and kind of see in your head the conversation that they had beforehand, where he's like, hey, could I get a fight scene in? And they like did some simple choreography, and then they filmed it and they put it in. It's just like it's just got this kind of like, you can see all the conversations once you have the context. Like you can see the conversations that went into making certain scenes. The whole part where they're talking about like teaching Taekwondo around the world, you can just tell that that's kind of like, that's genuinely coming from the heart. Like they actually like probably YK Kim like meant that, because he also wrote part of the movie. And that's where like that like wholesomeness comes in. And at the end of the movie, there's this like quote that goes over the front of the screen that's like, the only way we could have world peace is through the elimination of violence. Yeah. It's just like, wow.
Can I just say about that scene where they're talking about traveling the world to like teach Taekwondo?
Yeah.
Right before that, who's the Israeli guy? Jack. Right before that, Jack is like, I don't want to sing anymore at the bar because the ninjas keep showing up and I don't want to deal with them. And then the other 2 are just like, but it's fine. Like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then he's like, let's teach around the world. And it's like such a jarring switch of conversation.
I don't want to play at that club anymore because of Jeff selling his stupid cocaine.
And they just really quickly dismiss it, and then he goes into a whole tangent about let's
go teach Taekwondo around the world.
And it's like, what? What?
It's so great.
Oh my gosh.
All right, I got some other finishing facts here. So there are 2 scenes where Dragon Sound is specifically performing their songs, "Friends" and "Against the Ninja," and both of those songs play multiple times throughout the movie. So I kind of like that. You know, it gives these songs are bangers, and the movie gives you an opportunity to love them by playing them multiple times. They knew they had hits.
You can't finish the movie without like it being in your head.
Yeah. So during those scenes where they're performing, you can see that Tom and Mark, their guitars are actually like not plugged into anything. Mark specifically, nothing that he's doing on the guitar is matching the music.
I didn't even notice that.
So I knew that when we were watching. So I was giggling extra hard watching, because I didn't know that the first time I watched the movie. This is only the second time I've seen this. But seeing that and knowing that, what just made it so much better.
I like watching the first scene. I was like, I feel like they're not really playing, but I didn't think too hard about it because I was like, I don't care, you know. But I didn't notice that they weren't like plugged in. Like I didn't like fully focus my attention on like that they were not hitting the notes. I was just like, I don't think they're really playing.
They're just on this stage, and YK Kim is just like playing the guitar, and it's like, hey, we're all orphans and we're all friends. And he's just like, he's not even wearing like the guitar strap at one point, and he like puts it on, but like that's happening in the background, like, and the guy that plays Tom is like doing the guitar solo in the foreground. So like it's just all off, and it's so perfect when you see it.
I also love those song scenes because like you can tell they reuse footage of like the crowd.
Yeah.
They just like repeat it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's so funny.
Anyway, my final facts here is just that the movie has a really strong cult following, and it's considered one of the greatest bad films of all time.
Oh, for sure. I think of all the bad films we've watched, this is probably my favorite. Yeah. Troll 2 is pretty close.
Yeah. I think I'm inclined to agree with you just over how amazing the premise of this movie is.
I freaking love Jim. I want like a Jim poster. Oh my gosh, he was the best.
When Alamo Drafthouse re-released this movie, they like remade the posters of the movie.
Yeah.
And they're perfect.
Yeah.
Like
Is it the same as the cover art? It's
that cover art on the cover art is fantastic. There's a part where there's like Jim with his like
cut
bleeding
chest.
out. Yeah. You look at the music album. So when I first watched this movie, you couldn't find this movie anywhere. I had to like watch it online.
Yeah.
But now you can watch it on Amazon. I got the Blu-ray. And the soundtrack, I bought the Blu-ray because that was the only way to acquire the soundtrack. That was the only way it was legally being distributed. And I wanted that soundtrack because those songs are bangers.
Yeah.
But now the soundtrack is on Spotify. But the cover art for the soundtrack is the guy that plays Tom with his mustache and his mullet, and he's like, it's amazing.
Yeah. Aw, I loved this movie. 5 out of 5. That was
Seriously,
a good pick.
this was I'm sitting on this one for a long time.
Yeah.
Just
this
waiting.
was a great moment to show it.
Yeah.
It brought me so much joy.
Any more thoughts on Miami Connection?
I think I said it all.
Right on.
It's great. Everyone go watch it.
Yeah.
Support it.
Check it out.
Yeah. That was so much fun.
I think the reason that I remembered to assign this movie was because I think when we were at Alamo Drafthouse, there was like a preview for like, we're doing screenings of Miami Connection. And it just reminded me that this movie existed and that Alamo Drafthouse was responsible for getting it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should throw a Miami Connection party, and I want to be a Jim. And I'm gonna run in and be like, my father! Oh my god! I love it. He was so great.
Yeah.
I want him to get awards for that. I loved him.
Oh, I did read that the guy that played Jim went on to never act again. But he became a very successful salesman and is now like the VP of sales for some streaming company.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love that. I wish he continued acting. He was like the best actor in this whole movie, which granted, I mean, none of them were great actors, but like he did like that emotion.
He had a crying scene,
he pulled out every emotion and it was believable.
Yeah.
I was like, get this man in a Marvel film. Like, he's great.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah. That was so much fun. I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, on to more depressing things.
Yeah, so that was a great thing to open with because we are going to talk about a real downer here.
Yeah.
So for the movie that I was assigned Malcolm and Marie. Excuse me. This movie was released in 2021. I'm going to give my top level summary. And then we can dive into some more specifics later on. So what this movie is a man and a woman couple played by John David Washington and Zendaya come home from the boyfriend's movie premiere for a movie that he made that was indirectly based on his girlfriend's struggle with drug addiction. But he didn't quite realize that he had been basing it on her drug addiction. And when he gave a speech at the premiere, he forgot to thank her during his speech. So they fight about it a lot, and it brings up other stuff in their relationship that drives each other crazy about each other. And they get mad, but then they're made up, but then one of them changes their mind and they're mad again, and then they say some really manipulative stuff to each other, and it goes back and forth, and then it gets very preachy about like culture, about at a ton of times, actually. And then by the end, it seems that they've accepted that this is just their relationship and that they love each other.
To laugh.
The end.
Oh my gosh.
That's basically this whole
conclusion?
movie. So
The conclusion's kind of vague. You don't really know what how they're feeling.
The conclusion is like they go to sleep that night, and then he wakes up and he finds her standing outside, and he goes and stands next to her.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends.
Yeah. That's pretty ambiguous, though.
It is
ambiguous. It could be like, we said terrible things, but we still love each other. Or it could be like, yeah, we both agree this is not going to work. You know?
But the whole movie is just the two of them in this house. It's all filmed in black and white. They show all of the credits to the movie in the opening. and it just gets going, and it's just the two of them talking and arguing, and then making up, and then getting mad again, and then making up, and then doing manipulative things like, hey, you're sitting outside smoking a cigarette, I'm going to come sit down next to you, and I'm going to play this song on my phone, and the song on my phone is going to be like, get rid of him.
A lot of the music is very intentional, and it's supposed to say something about what they were just talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know what to say beyond that. I've got like specifics of like what they end up fighting about and why they're fighting.
First, I want to hear just like what you thought about it.
Yeah, let me go to my part of the notes on that. Okay, so sometimes when you watch a movie, you can see the script that the actors are working from.
Yeah.
And this is one of those movies.
Yeah, for sure.
The line delivery, I think, reveals the weakness of the script a lot of the time. There are certain things that they say really quickly that people just don't say in normal conversation. I get that he's like a director, so he's pretty smart and artsy, but like, no way. He says to her at one point, "You're psychotic," and she very quickly, like without even missing a beat, responds, "You're hyperbolic." And it's like, no
one's gonna say that.
No, nobody says that. He uses the word solipsistic to describe her at one point. Nobody uses that word.
What does that even mean?
Nobody,
did you look it up?
No, I did not look it up. Because I don't care. I understood it when he said it in the context.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're so solipsistic that blah, 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 blah." And it's like, okay, I can tell solipsistic is not good.
Yeah.
But like, what the heck?
It's like trying too hard.
It's trying way too hard.
Yeah.
So for me, I started to get bored around 45 minutes because they're just fighting.
That's very fair.
They're just
Very
fighting
fair.
and preaching
Yeah.
and going off about like complaining about culture and like how people write reviews and interpret movies.
Yeah.
Or even like other stuff beyond that. And so like his rants go on very long, and you could just tell that the writer is venting directly through the script. But I was like, hey, good for them getting their lines right on some of these really long monologues.
Yeah. I think that's a thing. It's like the movie shows their acting ability, I feel like, pretty decently. Like,
yeah,
I
agree.
It's like, no, like with what they were given,
it's
they
well
acted the heck out of it.
Yeah.
But like the script, it's just not. It's not there, and it like kind of gives off like a fake deep. Like it's like it's trying really hard to be this deep, like think piece.
Like it's
and then you're like really just like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, what are they even at a certain point? You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
no, I wrote that. I was like, I started to really lose the point in the commentary, and it was just exhausting. And it turns into a shouting match, and by the end, I was kind of rolling my eyes.
Yeah, that's very fair. And I think everyone had that same feeling when this was released. I like when I was looking through facts, because I remember it being such a talking point during quarantine, like during the pandemic. And I remember everyone was just like, no, like everyone was very against it for different reasons. Some people were like, this is very triggering. Like, it's just so toxic. Like, I don't want any part of it. Other people were just like more so commenting on this exact fact of like, you know, it's a movie that's supposed to be about a very toxic relationship, and you can get behind that, and you start to in the beginning, but then it just becomes so tiresome, and you're over it, and you're like, what is even the point?
Because it really is these monologues that just go on and on and on, and one character not giving the other character an opportunity to respond, and then just going with like complete line of consciousness, just words, and then nothing, and then suddenly being like, but I love you. And it's like, get out, dude. I'm sorry. Like I couldn't with it at times, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
That was Those were all my notes. Yeah. I was just kind of wondering a few things. Well, first off, I was just kind of like, how could they possibly expect to have a life together if this is their relationship? Like, there's a point where he kind of gets excited about how kind of unstable she is. But earlier in the movie, he was like, "You are genuinely unstable," and he's acting like he hates that about his life. But then later on, after fighting back and forth so many times, he's like, "I am so turned on right now. I feel like we're gonna get married and divorced a few times, but whatever. That's just our relationship."
Yeah,
and it's
very
like,
chaotic.
It feels like it's kind of like, yeah, it's trying to be cool, or like trying to be. I don't know. So I worry that it's trying to depict this like new emo,
Like glamorized
toxicity. Yeah.
I think, and honestly, so Sam Levinson directed this, and he's also the director of Euphoria.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of his thing, is glamorizing toxicity. Like in Euphoria, there's so many toxic relationships.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's like kind of, yeah, just it glamorizes it. And then I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with just like friends, or like I've like watched like YouTube videos of people like saying like why they won't ever watch Euphoria. And I enjoy Euphoria.
I don't.
Yeah, I enjoy Euphoria, but I do see, like, I do have so many questions about, like, for Sam Levinson, of just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like, there's been questions like, who is this for? It's like you're seeing teenagers. It's very explicit. Is it geared towards teens? Is it because that's inappropriate, and it's because it's glamorizing these things? Like, they're gonna think this is okay, but if it's not for teens and it's for adults, like, that's kind of weird that we're sitting here watching these teens in like these very sexual ways and things like that. And it's I'm not quite sold on the way that he writes things and like depicts certain characteristics.
Yeah, there are certain elements in his works that I think are trying to kind of say something, or at least provide some, like, shine a light on aspects of society like toxic relationships and drug addiction that are very real for some people.
Yeah.
And there is some amount of like responsibility that his work is taking on by depicting that stuff and doing a pretty good job at depicting of like the realities of how that stuff plays out in your relationships with other people.
For sure.
But then at the same time, it'll do shots that are like making it feel cool.
Yeah.
That are, I don't necessarily agree with.
And that's the tough part for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I enjoy Euphoria, but sometimes I don't enjoy Euphoria. And it's like, you have these moments where it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. I see what you're accomplishing here. And then it just like does something else. And you're like, why? Like, and it's like, am I just not understanding why this is in here? Like, is it something that I just like, I can't relate because I've never been in these experiences. Like, it's like you're trying to understand what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's very wishy-washy, and like you can't really tell, and you can't decide if like it was a good piece of content or not.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why he would do that for Euphoria, because that's like the premise of Euphoria is to depict all that, and that's like your vehicle for providing those messages as a writer and a director.
Yeah.
Or just a creator. But then for him to also do Malcolm and Marie, which is just kind of like more the same, but as a movie.
Yeah.
I knew that this was Sam Levinson going into this, and then watching it, I kind of was just like, man, make something else.
Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. I told you, I think you asked me like, why did you pick this? Or like, why?
Well, because I got to this point where I was just like, I don't want to keep watching this.
No, for sure. Yeah, and I like, when you asked me that, I was like, oh, because I enjoy it. And I was like, but like, what do I enjoy about it? Because me saying I enjoy it, I do not think this is a good piece of content. I do not think this is a good film. And I agree with a lot of the things that you said. I think why I enjoyed it was visually, I like the look of it.
Yeah, it's very well filmed.
And I feel like that's what Sam Levinson does best. Whoever he like works with to like do that.
To do the principal photography.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really love it and I'm very drawn to it. And so like watching them and like watching the way they move through this house and the way the shots are set up is what I enjoy a lot. And so like this is only my second time watching this. This is not a movie that I would just like watch. Like I don't like it like that to where I'm like, let's watch this. It's fun. Like no. But I remember the first time I saw it and I was like, okay, that was some mess, but it was really beautiful.
Yeah. I will say, like, I've been in a toxic relationship, and I think the movie did a very good job at depicting the realities of what that can be like.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there were certain parts where I was just like, yep, seen that happen before.
Yeah.
And I can give it credit on that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really impressive oneers where they just are acting, and I'm like, wow, they are getting these lines nailed down. Meanwhile, Miami Connection had like one long shot, and the person that played Jane couldn't remember her lines and was like,
she was the apartment stuff.
Like, I'm staying in this apartment that I'm staying in, you know? So yeah, big contrast on sheer acting ability.
For sure.
But this is really just not something that I would watch again, nor would I really recommend. Personally.
Yeah. You like mentioning that like you've been a part of a toxic relationship and you've seen these kind of things like similarly.
Yeah.
And I think there's something interesting of like, and I think this is what captivated me to watch it in the first place, because I like when it first came out, everyone was talking about it, so I already like knew like, oh, this is like this toxic relationship that you just like watch play out. But something captivating about it is it's interesting to watch from the outside looking in, because when you're in those relationships, you don't always notice the toxicity. Like you know that like this is a lot and like this experience is a lot, but it's like you're not seeing the like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it doesn't feel as heightened in the moment of like being in it, at least for me. I don't want to speak for everybody, but for me, it's like I wasn't putting two and two together of like, this is a crazy moment. Like, why is this thing happening? And so to be on the outside looking in and you're looking at them and you're like, what are they saying? Like, what are they doing? Like, oh my gosh, like, why is this a thing? And then you think back and you're like, well, when you're in it, you don't know. You don't
always see how crazy it actually is.
And so it's something interesting to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
And see it play out in front of you.
As far as the ending went, like I was hoping that they would realize, hey, this relationship is bad for us and we should break up. Because I think they would both be better off not being in this relationship and working on themselves as individuals.
Yeah.
But the movie making it kind of vague of like what happened and, not having an answer, that kind of is realistic of like how the decision-making process would go in a toxic relationship, where like, like my relationship is crazy, but I love this person. And that, so I get the message, but like just with the unrealistic dialogue and all the preachy moments, like
it does go way above and beyond.
I'm not doing it again.
No, for sure. I totally get you. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I could sift through some of my notes here, but not really. No.
Well, so a question I have for you, because a big thing in the movie is about film critics. And
totally
how people critique movies, critique work.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes from like a Black artist and things like that. And I just wanted to know, like, you make film reviews, and this does not have to be specifically about like Black artists, but just like in general, did this movie and him talking as a director talking about like his perspective of these film critics, like, did it make you think about how you write reviews and like the things that you say and like how you view film as like an artistry?
Honestly, no. Because I do it for fun.
Yeah.
And I don't write I write reviews because I just want to make something productive out of all of the content consumption that I have.
Yeah.
I'll write a review on a game, I'll write a review on a movie, and it's just a way for me to practice writing.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it with like the regular content cycle that people who write reviews for a living are doing.
Right.
Because people who write reviews, they in a way are almost like writing culture and like what's important to the culture.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, this is really good. Then people are going to go see that. And then people are going to be making references to that. People are going to remember that thing for years and years to come.
Yeah.
And when they say something is bad, people don't go see it. And
Yeah.
then it gets forgotten.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. You know?
Yeah.
So I think everything that he pointed out in the movie was accurate and true, and I agreed with all of that and was pretty much already aware of it.
Yeah.
But I don't, for myself as somebody who writes reviews, I don't really see it that way because it's just, I only really write reviews about the things that I want to be writing about, which is why most of my reviews are so positively scored because I don't want to, one, waste time watching something that's not good.
Yeah.
But two, like, you just don't get as excited to write about it. Whereas, like, you know, people who are writing reviews for like the LA Times or the New York Times or, you know, whatever website usually have like a literature degree and are like, they've been trained how to analyze things from that like deeper lens. Like, I did all my English classes. I've got a master's degree, but you know, there's just a level of literary analysis that I can't do that some other reviewers that get paid to do this for a living can. So yeah, I don't take writing reviews that seriously because it's not supposed to be that serious. My goal with writing reviews is just to say, I like this thing and I want to share that with other people. And if they get convinced to then check that thing out too, great. Because for me, it's just about sharing the things that I like. It's not about reviewing and determining what's going to be remembered and what's not. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't write reviews, so like I don't know. I was like, I don't know if that was resonating with you, like when he was talking, or like if it made you think about like how you look at movies and things like that. And so
I mean, it did. He made a lot of interesting points about how, like, because he is a black director and he is making this movie about drug addiction, this reviewer for the LA Times, who is a white woman, interpreted his movie like he's making this big commentary about how the mental health system has failed people of color who are struggling with drug addiction, specifically black women. Yeah. And he kind of was saying like, well, maybe I just wanted to make a movie that was depicting those events. Maybe I didn't want to have all of that commentary. Yeah. But now because she's interpreted that way, people are going to say that's why I did it.
Yeah. I really think that's so interesting when he was saying all that too, because like, and I feel like I was like, the way I was thinking about it was kind of in line with how Zendaya was like talking to him about it, because it's like, I understand his point of like not everything needs to be political. However, I think like you can't separate context from what you're depicting. You know what I mean? Like we are all coming to watch this film having lived experiences within the system. Yeah. And especially if you're depicting something like drug use and like mental health and things like that, like people are going to take away like the political aspect of it, the political side of it, because you just can't separate, you know, our experiences from the the content of this film. And so I was like having a hard time with like understanding his point of view with that, and him being like, I just want it to be an entertaining movie that like makes you feel something. I'm like, I mean, you can do that, but like, how do you how do you separate that? Like, I understand if it was like a children's movie and the woman made it political, it's like, okay, this is a children's, like, you know, it's like, that's not the point. But
he makes a point during the movie about how if he had decided to make a Lego movie, they would have said, oh, it's it's this allegory for how black people built America, basically. It's like he couldn't just make a Lego movie.
No, and that's where I agree with him. It's like, because he is a black man in this industry, yes, people are going to take everything that he does in that sort of way. And that's, I'm like, okay, if you made a children's movie, I understand, like a Lego movie, I can understand why he's like, it's not political, it's just a children's movie. It's just a Lego movie. Yeah. And so I get that point. But he was trying to make that point about this film, about drug addiction and things like that. And I was like, I don't know if I fully understand where you're coming from in terms of this piece of content you're referring to specifically,
right?
Because I just think it's hard to separate the two. So it's like, and I feel like throughout the movie you have these moments where you're like, you see each person, you kind of see their point, and you're like, I see where you're coming from. But then, like, there's contradictions, and there's like,
lots of contradictions. Lots of changing of minds.
And so then you're kind of just like, I'm not on anybody's side because, like, what? What's going on?
That's what's just hard about the movie is that, like, oh, I see your point, and then I don't see your point.
Yeah, you get lost in their thoughts, which, I mean, honestly, is human nature. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I've had arguments with people where I, like, start with this point and then I hear myself contradict myself, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's
to err is to be human.
Yeah. But no, they're toxic.
Very toxic. Okay, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
I don't know if this is more of like a making of the movie artistic decision question, if you have it in your trivia notes. Why is the movie in black and white?
Oh, that's a good question. I have no clue.
Oh, you didn't find an answer to that? Mm-mm. All right, so why do we think it's in black and white?
I honestly am gonna say for just like aesthetics, just to make it interesting and cool. I think that's a big part of this movie. It's just like, how can we make this just visually something different, something interesting, captivating, artsy, you know? Yep. I'm sure there might be a deeper reason for it, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't think that there was any explanation that is provided from the creators on why it was in black and white. I don't think I'll be satisfied with.
I feel you. Well, do you want me to get into some facts about how the movie was made?
Yep, please go ahead.
So this is actually one of the first films to be written, directed, and completed during COVID-19 pandemic in the U.S. And the filming took about 2 weeks total, and only 12 people were allowed on set at any given time because of COVID restrictions.
Okay.
So this house that they filmed at, I was more interested in the house. I love this house. It's a beautiful home.
Yeah.
The house is located in Carmel, California, and it's called the Caterpillar House. And it's won awards for being
Caterpillar House.
Mm-hmm. It's won awards for not only being just like absolutely stunning, but because it's extremely environmentally friendly.
Oh, cool.
So they like had a whole explanation of like how the air gets like regulated or whatever through the house, temperature controlled, everything like that. But I won't get into the depths of that. Honestly, I have no-nos. That's like pretty much all my facts, because there's really not much to this movie aside from them just like battling it out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it makes sense conceptually as one of the first movies to get made during COVID, because there's only 2 actors.
Yeah.
You got one space that the whole thing is taking place in.
Yeah.
And hey, we can only have 12 people on set. Well, dang, we can't hire somebody to color the shots the way we want to color them. So let's make it black and white.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Some other things. So Kid Cudi was an executive producer, which is like so random.
Okay.
I don't have more on like why he came onto the project.
Okay.
I know. I also did a terrible job finding facts. I'm not gonna lie.
That's fine.
Law Roach, which has been Zendaya's stylist for literally her entire career.
Law Roach?
Yeah, that's his name. He's been her stylist for like her entire career. He just retired recently.
Was he styling Tom Holland for a little bit there?
Yeah. He
Okay.
styles other people too. But he did all the costume design, which makes sense. I mean, they only wear like 2 outfits a piece. Well,
They wear a nice suit and PJs.
yeah, which is like a t-shirt and panties.
Yeah.
Labyrinth did the music, so Labyrinth also does the music for Euphoria. What I really love about Zendaya in particular is like she has her team and she sticks with those people and like they're a part of everything that she does, and I just find that so sweet, and like I'm sure it's like very grounding for all of them because they all have kind of like become successful together. And yeah, I don't know, I just really love it, and I love like she has a relationship with Labyrinth. They've done like music together for Euphoria. So yeah, so he did, and I think Labyrinth did a great job doing the music. Like I said, all the music was very intentional. They play at specific points and they have specific messages that align with whatever they were talking about at the time.
But the songs in the soundtrack are not Labyrinth's songs.
No, they're not his. But I think he curated the music.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Other than that, all I have is just like I said, the reviews were not good for this movie. NPR basically wrote a whole thing that was like, this is dumb. It has no meaning. There's a GQ article. I have a quote from them that says, sure, the film doesn't need to have a message, but Malcolm and Marie doesn't have much heart either. And any electricity that exists at the start of the film eventually fizzles out thanks to its tedium.
Okay, that is extremely validating because I was sitting here this whole time thinking that you thought this was some fantastic movie.
Oh my gosh, no.
Because I asked, like, why did you want to watch this movie? And you were like, well, it's a good movie.
Did I say good?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that she thought this was good.
Sorry.
Because I was sitting there like, I don't like this.
I'm sorry. No, I don't think that's a good... All I remember saying, like, oh, I like this movie... I might have said it's a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a good movie. I think it's a good movie in terms of its cinematography.
Sure.
And that's why I like it. So, yeah, my bad. Completed the 2.
Whatever.
But yeah, no, I don't think its content is necessarily good. But I think just like visually and the fact that they did it with 12 people.
Yeah.
Like I just like the way it looks.
Right on. It's a perfect product of its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything else as well. All right. Well, usually this is the time when we would do the next week's assignments.
Weird not to.
I know.
Do you have an idea of like what you want to talk about next week?
I
Get a little sneak preview.
I have no idea what I want to talk about next week. I just want to talk about anything and everything. I want to talk about what's going on with the MCU right now, or lack of excitement with the MCU. I don't know. Last bonus episode we ended up talking about that quite a bit. We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about something different.
I'm willing to talk about whatever.
Yeah. I think we should do like at least a brief recap on like some of our favorite assignments from
for the past 50
episodes.
Past favorites, and then maybe a little like, I don't know. Thinking back on like some of the themes of, there sometimes I want to give a video game thing. Sometimes I want to give a kung fu thing. Sometimes I want to give an anime thing.
Yeah.
So maybe I might ask you a little bit like what were your favorites of specific categories, and give you some options.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't have anything prepared.
Well, me neither.
We
got a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Got time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A part of me wants to just like talk about literally nonsense.
Sure. Well, we can make a section, the nonsense section.
Aaliyah's questions.
Yeah, Aaliyah's questions.
Nonsensical questions.
For everyday life. All right. Well, I'm going to cook some dinner, and then we're going to go see the Mario movie.
Woohoo!
So thoughts on that next week, on top of all the other things.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And no assignments this week. You'll get the assignments at the end of the next episode. So have a good one. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for supporting us.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.